Hello everyone, welcome back to Witches the Moon. I am your Friday hostess, Natalie, and this week's topic again is going back to the elements. This week we're discussing the elemental of Earth. So I'll talk a little bit about some of the correspondences of Earth, and since we're doing something slightly different next week, I'll talk a little bit about some of the ways that you can incorporate the elemental of Earth into your home and into your spiritual practice. Now, Earth to me is probably the most important elemental, second only to Spirit, in that Earth is our mother, our home. It's where we come from, it's where we live, it's where we return to. Almost everything in our lives comes in some form from Earth. So, when you're talking about traditional correspondences for Earth, most people traditionally associate the kind of earthy colors like greens and browns with the elemental of Earth. I also, in my practice, utilize the color black. In the Celtic practice, or those that follow a more Celtic path, the colors are different than they are in a traditional Wiccan system. And so my corresponding color to the element Earth, which aligns still with the direction of north, is black. My elemental candle is black. So it's kind of like that void from which everything comes out of. So Earth is, to me, again, one of the most important elementals because it represents everything that we come from, everything that we are. So what goes along with that? Well, anything that comes of the earth. So in your practice, if you are utilizing herbs, salt, especially sea salt, that all comes from the earth. Any type of herb or plant, chili peppers, anything like that that you utilize. Any kind of earth that you utilize. So if you're big on using different types of dirt, like graveyard dirt, let me see the other dirt, crossroads dirt, any kind of thing like that that comes from the ground is going to be related to the elemental earth. If you have a salt lamp in your home, that's a good way to bring in the element of earth into your home. I utilize a salt lamp, a Himalayan salt lamp, and I love it because it ionizes the air, helps with my allergies. But it is one more way of bringing the element of earth into your home. When you're talking about other traditional correspondences, if you're into the tarot, the elemental of earth is associated with the suit of pentacles, or discs, or coins as it's sometimes referred to. And the signs, the zodiac signs that are aligned with that particular suit are the earth signs, so Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn. Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, those are your three tarot, astrological signs that correspond with the elemental of earth. So if you're wanting to utilize the elemental of earth in your craft, you could utilize a card from the suit of pentacles, especially if you're trying to manifest something associated with your resources, education, money, something like that. Those are things that are traditionally associated with the suit of pentacles. So you could have a card, maybe the ace of pentacles, as a focal point, surround it with something earthy like leaves, branches from trees, dirt, acorns, things like that. All of those things, even salt, something like that would be useful. One of the correspondences with earth is protection. People often use earth for protective purposes. And think about how deep this goes in the lore. Because if you look at even stories of, say, Dracula, he had to be transported in the earth from his homeland. So they had to put that in the coffins, and that's what was in all the boxes and coffins that was transported. That's how important it was. He couldn't just cross the water. He had to be carried in the element of his own land. So we are tied very much to the land. My patron goddess is the Morrigan, and she has very close ties to the land. One of the things that she's associated with is cattle and both horses as well, which horses are associated with some other goddesses as well. Maka, who is one of the three excuse me, I'm totally blanking out today. Not personalities, but part of the triune god that is the Morrigan. Maka is one of the aspects, there we go, of the Morrigan. She is very closely associated with horses because, of course, she had to race horses. She won, but she gave birth and I believe died at that point, so it became a curse upon the land. But cattle and horses are things that are associated very closely with the land because they graze upon the land. They need the land to live. So those are things that are also closely corresponded, at least in the Celtic tradition, with earth. So anything like that also. Animals are often earth associated, although not all. I mean, I know a lot of people associate birds with the element of air and certain things with the element of water and so forth. Another correspondence would be earth elemental spirits, which are like gnomes. Now this is very similar to something they have in Norway, which are called Nissen. The Nissen are protective beings that look over your home. They're very similar and characteristic in nature to excuse me, to gnomes. So gnomes are those things that you would call upon. They are protectors of nature. Anything associated with nature, again, comes from the earth. Those are things that have correspondences to the elemental of earth. So if you have, like I have gnomes in my garden, I put them there for a reason, partially because my daughter doesn't like them. It was also my goal to have my entire garden aligned with gnomes, all facing out like a little army, because I was doing it out of protest to my homeowners association, which is run by a bunch of idiots. But I really like them. So I feel that they are protective, if for no other reason it's paying homage to those spirits. I don't think the statues themselves necessarily hold any value, except that it's put there in homage to the earth elemental spirits of the gnomes to protect my home. A lot of people don't understand that that's what they represent, and so people put garden gnomes out all the time, but they're supposed to bring luck and protection to your home and to your garden space, and a lot of people don't understand that. So if you didn't know that, you do now. So let me see, is there something else that I would like to say? I think I talked about that. Anytime you're using any kind of dirt, grave dirt, black salt, sea salt, table salt, pink salt, anything of that nature, you are utilizing something that's of the elemental earth. So if you wanted to bring plants into your home, that's one way of bringing the element of earth into your home. I've seen people that couldn't have like an open altar space, but they would have like a bookcase, and they would have in the directions, you know, representing north, south, east, west on a map, they would have different things to represent the elementals. And I've seen people put bowls of salt, I've seen salt lamps, I've seen dirt, plants, things like that to represent that elemental. Pardon me one moment. Okay. So anyhow, those are some ways. Anytime you utilize something from earth, and a way I kind of correspond wands with the elemental of earth. I know a lot of people associate it, and I know in the tarot it's associated with the element of air, but or fire, I tend to associate it more with earth in terms of not when I'm doing a reading in a tarot deck, but for my personal thinking, the wand itself, not so much the power that issues forth from it, but the wand itself, because it is something that is of the earth. So I see it as one of those combined kind of elementals, sort of like incense to me is a combination of air, earth, and fire, because it's made with charcoal, which comes from the earth. It's something you light, so it's fire, but the smoke that issues forth and the scent that's issued forth is related to the elemental of earth. So if you, to air. So if you wanted to use something like that, that would also be a good way to do it. So that might be another issue there, way that you can bring that elemental into your practice. I'm trying to think of things that may not be things that other people have talked about 156 million times this week, but I think that's really all I can bring forth on this topic. I do feel it's an important elemental, and I think it's good to connect. I know some people may have talked about grounding. To be honest with you, this has been an insane week, and I've not seen anybody else's videos for this week, which is kind of unusual. I usually try to watch everybody's videos. Grounding, that's the other thing I wanted to talk about. When you are talking about the elemental of earth, if you want to connect with the earth, take your shoes off, sit outside, put your back against a tree and your feet flat against the ground, and you will often feel, after a few minutes of quiet contemplation or meditation, you'll feel the vibration, you'll feel that movement, and you'll feel that energy moving up through you. You can feel all the bad stuff just sort of draining out of you as you ground yourself to the earth. And once again, that's just one more way that we can connect with the element of earth, actually getting out in nature, being in nature, doing things in nature, going for a nature walk, just listening to all the things that issue forth from the earth, walking barefoot. I do that a lot, and I know that can be dangerous because obviously you want to watch where you're walking. You don't want to step on something. It's a good way to get hookworms. There's other things that you can do. I understand that, but for me, walking barefoot, at least through my yard, is something that's very, very important. I have a pretty good idea what's in my yard, so I can look for things, or I can be very cautious about stuff. So it's one of those things that I feel is just extremely important, and I think it's the most important elemental, second, like I said, only to spirit. So connecting with earth, I think, is a way to uplift your spirit and to remain kind of connected. And also, because we all exist on the earth, it connects all of us. We all come from the earth, so to me, it's a very connective element. When you connect with the element of earth, you are locking into that human and animal collective. Everything that was ever created out of the earth, including mountains and volcanoes and rocks and everything else, it's all interconnected. And when you really connect down to the element of earth, you are locking into that connection, and you're making yourself a part of it. You're making yourself aware of it. And I think it's very uplifting and stress draining to do that. So anytime you can do earthing, going out and putting your feet to the ground without shoes, without socks, just connect. Even if it's just to go sit on your front lawn for a few minutes with, your butt on the ground and your feet flat on the ground, that's an excellent exercise. Really take notice of the smell of the earth. I really especially like to do this right after a rain, and I don't care if I get a little wet in my butt. I can change. I really like to get out there and smell that. And by the way, the smell of earth after a rain has a name. It's petrichor. There's another little bit of trivia for you. So I love that smell, and I will sit down and I will really connect. I really love to go out early in the morning when it's dawn, or in the evening right at dusk, when you can smell the dew and when you can smell, the earth starting to kind of cool itself and rise, and really just breathe it in deep and connect. And I think that that's very spiritually uplifting and cleansing, for me at least. That may not be everybody's experience. I do have really bad allergies, and I think that probably exacerbates it, but it's something that I do often because I really feel that stress drain out of me. So that's my spiel on the elemental of earth. I know it's kind of short, and I apologize. Next week we'll be talking about another topic that's closely related, and that's kind of why I'm a little hesitant to talk so much about it today, because I really want to get more into depth about it next week. So I hope that you all enjoyed this video, got a little something out of it that might have been a little different from what you saw on everybody else's. I wish you again many blessings, and thank you so much for joining us. Have a good week.